Okay, right, here we are on a Sunday night. After all day of this thing driving me up the wall, first of all, I must be honest and say part of that was my fault. I had, last night, because I was tired, I had been following the wrong circuit diagram. In fact, I think I've been following the wrong one all along. This is a 938F, so the fringe version. It is not a 938, an ordinary 938 as originally thought. But that does not really matter because, at least in the sense of getting this thing working, at the very least with the fault that we had. Remember, we had some weird voltages around, so we had someone's flushing the toilet, we always have that, but what we didn't have was boost voltage. Well, we did have HT from the boost rectifier, but we didn't have any boost voltage. Now, and also, there was something else as well that I remember. Oh yeah, the feed resistor, one of the feed resistors to the PL81, which I've changed several times now, was boiling hot. That's now quite cool, and the reason why is because we have line whistle. This thing is working now. This red lead had come away. You can see I've freshly soldered it, but I didn't notice that because it was still leaning against it. The end had corroded where it had connected onto the solder pad. I know that there's a bit too much solder there. I'll need to tidy that up in a minute. In fact, dare I? Because if I dare do that, then that tiny strand of wire will come off again. So yeah, that had come loose. I'll show you where that connects in a moment, but we have line whistle now. Do we have anything in the EY51 or whatever it is? Doesn't look like it. Thing is, that is a stick light, so it's kind of hard to block out the light from it. That fault drove me up the wall. It drove me up the wall, drove me up the wall, drove me up the wall. Now we have it fixed, or we are at least part way there. Last night this thing was driving me mad. Anyway, one interesting thing I have noticed is I'm going to have to be very careful here when I move that. The line frequency changes, and I'm obviously not doing it with my other hand because this thing doesn't float on its own. I'm wondering if there's some kind of induction or something, some kind of coupling effect going on there. Ooh, oh yeah, oh yeah. That made me jump and a half. Come on, focus. Oh yeah. That's the stuff that we need to see. This camera's now started just automatically jumping out of HDR mode. Anyway, right, that is now back in. I know you probably can't see, but the anode connection is now connected up. We shall switch on. Still don't know which one of these is brightness and that sort of thing. That's on and off and volume, so presumably one of these is going to be channel change, the other one's going to be fine tuning, so presumably the outer one here is for brightness. And why have we got no continuity now? Right, here we go. Again, switch that on. Got heater continuity. Right. So, hope to see something on there. So the valves have warmed up. They've just peaked at about 75 watts. So that's reducing. It usually goes down to about 68, 69 watts, which it's at now. And now they're starting to conduct. Sound valve first, or sound stage first. Note on the screen. Nothing. It's like that Philips. Nothing. EHT, but nothing. Let's see if we get anything on the screen when I connect this up and try and change channels. This bears no relation to this. What? Notice how there are several components in kind of ladder formation down these tack strips. Down there, see? Whereas there is no such neatness on this. What? No. This is your television repairman, Charles Wilmington Smythe, Tory MP for West Portshire, telling you that even though all the components on this may be on the bottom of there and connected up to each other to form the same circuit, then, but this is all very higgledy-piggled there, what. Right, so, we are looking, or rather I am trying to investigate why the boost voltage is about 315, something like that when I measured it last night. The EHT is okay. I've just measured that just before I started filming. That's at 10 kilovolts from what I remember. Right. Yeah, it is 10 kilovolts. Right, so we are looking on the boost rail itself then, because if that's 10 kilovolts, which is what the manual calls for, that means that both of these should be working okay, as is that. So, now I've done a little bit of digging around, like a dog trying to find a bone. And as Charles Wilmington Smythe said, that capacitor there, which is capacitor 70, which is what smooths the EHT rail, the boost HT rail, it's that capacitor there. So that capacitor 71 is that yellow capacitor. That is connected via some orange leads down to this resistor here. Brown, green, yellow. That in turn is connected by a wire link just there to this capacitor, and that has got to be capacitor 70, and you can see that has been a bit warm because it's damn light. That has been quite warm because this resistor has been pressing up against that in just that spot there, and we know it's not the resistor that's been doing that because the resistor is not connected. That lead is not long enough to connect to any of these tag strips. I know that one's been a bit burnt, but it's okay because I accidentally shorted a couple of pins when I was measuring voltages on this. I've just made a discovery. That is capacitor 78. There. Let me just zoom that out. That is this corner of this. We are seeing this from this side. Yeah, baby, yeah. Your mama, yeah. Whatever. Anyway, see a bit of a attack of the Shangos there. Anyway, we are seeing it from, as I said, this top side, as if we're looking sideways on it. Anyway, the cover has already been removed, right? I completely forgot when first opening this setup, that this should have a cover. That's already missing. It was already missing when I got it. Someone in the past has been in here. That is supposed to be here, and you can see that there are remnants of some wax that's come off. And it's supposed to be connected to pin R of the line output transformer, which is this. Now, think about this logically, right? They're not going to have, see that grey wire there? They're not going to have a wire just terminated there connected to nothing. And if we zoom in, you can see that that's connected. It's obviously connected to a winding in there, but you should be able to see, I can't remember on which one of these it was. Just move this wiring out of the way. Better be careful, right, moving that, but anyway. One of these, I think possibly that one, one of these had something connected to it. Who thinks that whoever it was has chopped out that capacitor and then not bothered to replace it? That capacitor is off the bottom of the screen. It's that one there, which forms part of the boost voltage, the boost rectifier cathode circuit. Almost forgot then, on a boost rectifier, the top is the cathode, the bottom is the anode. Sorry, no, I got my words mixed up there. What I meant was, this is the anode, this is the cathode. The cathode, on a boost rectifier, the cathode is the one that has the cap, not the anode. C78 must be some kind of smoother, because it was connected across. Was it smoother? Decoupler. You can probably tell I'm still learning this. Right. This should explain everything. Right. We are looking on. Well, that's all about the stuff on the primary side of the transformer, line output transformer. We want to look on the secondary side of this thing, which is described here. Right, so where does it mention capacitor 78? It does not mention it on there. Does it mention it on there either? No. Does it mention capacitor 78? Right, it mentions pin R. Right, so cathode voltage of valve 16 exceeds that of the HT supply during the scan period by the potential developed across the windings NR and GJ. Potential means voltage, or potential voltage, whatever. That's the word of this video. Whatever, whatever, whatever. By the potential voltage developed across developed across the windings NR and GJ. Excess voltage, known as the boost voltage, that's why it's called the boost rectifier, and the boost HT across capacitor 71, the yellow thing, is filtered by capacitor 70, which is that which I thought was getting hot but actually isn't, and resistor 93, which is this one here, not the yellow, purple, orange one, but this other one. To remove the horizontal, cross capacitor 71 is filtered by capacitor 70 and 93 to remove the horizontal components, or sync pulses, or the pulses, before being applied to the first anode of the CRT with the picture tube and picture height control R54. No mention of capacitor 78 though. I think that has got to be some kind of smoother. I'm going to have to get the theory books out on this. Right, we are now into May, and today's update is that I have put in a replacement for the missing capacitor 78 between pins Q and R. As you will be able to see from the official manufacturer's service manual, it's connected to pin Q, because that's where the HT lead is anyway. See, it's joined to that, and also the other end connected to pin R. The original went between here. I don't know if you can see, there we are. You can see that that's been chopped off there. So it went between there, over there, and around about here. I think it was this bottom one. I have given it something slightly less elaborate. Yeah, I know that my soldering is a bit sloppy, but yeah. So yeah, let's power this thing up. If that thing arcs, then the entertainment value will be worth more than the whole set is, so let's switch this thing on. Let me just check that we've got heater continuity first, because the base on the tube is really loose. Yep, we have. Yeah, this base round here, tube base, is really loose. What sort of, where are we with the warming up? Right, we are still dropping, so it's just finishing warming up. Well, the valves are just starting to warm up. Now they're starting to conduct. Is that going to work? Nope. I wonder why they didn't put the original there. Why they had to have an elaborate thing with the capacitor going over the top. Why not just... Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of space between the pins on there. Anyway, there won't be anything on the screen because I've not got the anode, the final anode connected. That's nice and safe, isn't it, having that floating about near there. If I knocked that off and it fell into there, it would have been fireworks. Yeah, I've just connected that up and had to wince as my hand touched that. That tube is disgusting. That is disgusting. A bit like looking at a negative of the lunar surface. That thing is dirty. As is the cabinet. Underside of the cabinet, look. The dog agrees. Right, 5 to 10 on Wednesday, 3rd of May. Yes, I've still not activated Windows 7 because this is not a legit copy of Windows 7. Anyway, Bill Gates can go himself if he thinks I am going to pay for any of his operating systems. Yeah, how does that work out? You pay for a computer, then you have to pay someone else in order to work it. Unless you get Linux, of course. But who outside of an IT field uses Linux? Computers bore me. The only reason why I know what to do when they break down is simply because I won't let a computer intimidate me. You know, just a machine. Oh, those valves are not level. The left one is slightly higher than the other one. I didn't notice that. Anyway, have we got anything on the screen? Of course we don't. Of course we don't. Where's the brightness control? Where's the brightness control? Where's the brightness control? Where's the brightness control? I need to push that in. I need to push it in. Middle of the road have got nothing on me, have they? Should go on X Factor. Probably win it if Simon Cowell starts getting some tasty music. Not sure if I'm imagining things, but I could just swear I saw something just then. Very, very, very faint. I'm probably imagining things, but there's that horizontal hold control. I was swivelling that and I saw something. Oh, I think I did. Probably was imagining it. Right, wishful thinking at its worst. This thing just gets even more and more interesting. Remember, someone has budged this tube socket in the past. Remember, I'm sure I remember when I first unplugged this. Before I first plugged this in. Let me get my words out right. When I first plugged this in, I replaced one of the wires on here, which joins pin 3 to pin 5. I didn't think anything about it at the first time because the wire that had been changed over looked really manky and it looked original. Right, major discovery time. Pin 5 is the anode voltage to this tube. That should carry the boost voltage, which is 400 volts nearly, or round about. I've measured the boost voltage is still sitting around 275, but that I think is a separate matter, because pin 3 on here is one of the heater voltages, which is 6.3 volts. Fortunately, the heater has not received 400 volts because the end of this has obviously been cut. It was tucked inside here. The end of that was tucked inside here. So I didn't even spot this. I didn't spot this until I looked more carefully at the wiring around the tube socket. So the tube's anode isn't getting anything. No wonder there's no picture. Someone has really, really, really been bodging at this. So I'm going to replace the wire. I'll not even pull this out, I'll just feed another wire. I'll not even pull this out, I'll just feed another wire through. I don't know what else to say. Clearly someone on my phone does, if you heard that, but I don't know what else to say. I just do not know what else to say. What other bodgers, what other delights, what other artistic work shall we call at its very best and bodging at its worst, which is what it really is. What other work has been going on in this thing? What kind of cheap tight arse has tried to fix this themselves? Apart from me, obviously. At least I'm trying. Probably not very well, but I'm trying to fix this. But seriously? Someone seriously tried to fix this, thought they knew what they were doing by cutting that, and then trying to get 400 volts from 6.3 volts. Really? What kind of absolute is that? Right, I've just soldered that onto there and that onto there. Let's see if fixing that horrible work has sorted things. Do we have heater continuity? Yes, we do. Right, so that's making contact at the moment. Yep, that looks securely in. What sort of, where are we with warming up? We are at, so still just finishing off warming up with the tubes. Let's see, the tubes now, valves I mean, they are beginning to emit. I'm not expecting anything to be bright, still possibly nothing because I've been messing around with the ion trap, so that may need resetting, but we shall see. Still nothing on the screen. Not want to try to change the channel anyway, and of course the channel knob has come loose now. Terrific. Right, I've got that shorted together, cathode to grid. Let's see if we have any heater continuity. We still do. Let's see if we get anything on the screen now. So the valves still warming up. They were hot from just a minute or two ago, which is why it's warming up quicker. It keeps doing that now. Not sure why. Do I see something on there? I think I do. Oh yes. At last. At last we have something on there. Oh yeah. Tell you what, that is really, really in. Right, let's sort that picture out. Does focus make any difference? No. Adjusting the ion trap, being really careful not to touch my hand against that boost. Against the boost rectifier. At last we have something on there. It's dim, it's faint, I know, but we've got something at last. So I just thought I'd take a video of it doing this. Video of it in the dark. How many years is it since it last did that? Right, we are a little later in the day, and now that we've got something on the screen, I want to troubleshoot. First of all, the low, because it was all out of focus, that tells me it's low EHT, even though the focus control was at its sharpest setting. Low EHT could be down to that, because it's at 10 kilovolts. I know I said that that's fine earlier. What I meant was it should be fine enough to produce something on the screen, but it's not fine for if you want a sharp picture. Not fine if you want a sharp picture, I mean. That could be, as I said, could be just down to that EHT rectifier valve going low emission. It's an EY51 and it's a Philips. It's not a Cossor one. It will be the same. A Cossor one would be the same kind of valve, but it would just use the American numbering scheme. Because that one says, if I switch the lamp off, EY51, it's worn off, but you should just be able to see it. EY51 on there, just underneath the Philips name. Because that says EY51, I can tell with almost 100% certainty that that's a replacement anyway. So that's been replaced at some point in the past, which is not surprising. These only lasted a couple of years on average, I would say, at least from what I've read about them online. I could be wrong, but that's what I've read about them. So low EHT could be down to that, but I think primarily it's going to be down to the boost voltage being low, because at this point here, even before we get to the point where it should be 400 volts, at this point here it's lower than 300. Lower than 400. It's about 350. And I am wondering if that is because if we follow this round from this side, that should be 180, and it's tapped into there, and it goes across this capacitor as well, but it's tapped into there, fed from there. I'm wondering if both that and the lack of width, the picture was quite thin, it should be quite a bit wider. The picture width and the horizontal form both tie in with each other. Both picture width is the overall width, horizontal form sort of affects the width. It can change a circle to an oval, or back to a, can change an oval, egg-shaped, to a circle, to rugby ball-shaped oval if that's too wide. That affects the linearity, so the overall shape of the picture. So that has an effect on the width. I am wondering if that capacitor is leaky. And that is the kind of capacitor that what's going on with that? There's a switch. Anyway, that is the kind of capacitor that I am getting, that I was worried about at the start of the call. It's wax paper, and it's one that is manufactured by TCC. You can't see it very clearly on there, but these are the ones that almost universally go bad. They go leaky, and then they short circuit. Well, I think that speaks for itself. Yeah, that's not healthy. I've just cleaned the lead on here, and it is testing something. 253 nanofarads, which, given that that is supposed to be a 0.05, so 500 nanofarads, switched itself off. 250, yeah, that capacitor is very suspect. Now in my luck it might not actually fix the fault. It's struggling, that capacitor is struggling to hold, where are we, 50 volts. And it goes completely short when I switch it up to 100 volts. So, and it manages fine at 25. Out that little guy comes. It's supposed to handle, let me just discharge that before touching it, otherwise I will get a shock. What's this thing supposed to handle? Definitely 0.05 microfarads, you can just see it there. In amongst all that mess, let me switch the light back on. 0.05. What voltage? These usually have the voltage printed in small. I need to get used to looking through the camera viewfinder and not over the viewfinder. But sometimes there we are, 500. That is supposed to hold 500 volts, and it can barely manage a tenth of that. New capacitor installed. It looks brighter in the camera than it does in real life, but yep, that's there. No difference. Okay. We have got other issues then. We still need to work out why that boost is low. And the boost remains stubbornly low. That's even before that resistor. Right, so I have replaced the capacitor. The resistor tested fine. 162k, it's a 150k resistor, but it has 10% tolerance, so that means it should tolerate anywhere up to 165. Anyway, of course there is no difference. Of course there isn't any difference. We have to get that boost voltage up first of all, to rule that out from causing low EHT. Right, I've done a little bit of further diagnosis. I did find a fault. Taking measurements around here revealed the anode of this, which is the, I think they call it a sink clipper or sink shaper or something like that. Anode load on that was too low, and the control grid, the middle one, was too high. So the anode voltage was too low, the control grid was too high. Resistor 82 was the culprit. That had risen to about 730k. Yeah, that one was pretty high. Right, but I replaced it with a 470k, and we have no difference pretty much. So yeah, what I have also discovered is that the HT, the B+, as I think Americans call it, is 180 volts there, which is fine. But then when you get to around here, it goes down to about 110 or something like that. Of course, any of these resistors could be open circuit or high, but I don't think so, because where is it? Where's the line output valve? Line output valve, where are you? Ah, there. Because the voltage here on the screen grid is 155, or it's supposed to be 155. It's actually 110. And the voltage is too low on this side of this resistor. And that resistor is this white one here. So where is that 180 volts going then? So it comes from here. Could be a load on there. So goes through that to the line scan coils. That could be loading it down. Maybe. Possibility. What page are we on now? Where am I? I'm looking for this. Right. Yeah, we need. Of course, it could also, it could also link into this, because remember our boost voltage is quite low. But there, I thought it measured fine. 6th of May 2023, Coronation Day, although I've not really been paying much attention to it. And we have a huge improvement. The flickering that you see is the camera not taking the picture at the same time as the TV is producing them, but yeah, so you don't see that flickering in real life, but we have a massive improvement. I'll just let you sit there just for a moment, just to appreciate probably the same feeling that I've got. We are on the home run now. We're nearly there. One complication we have got. I'll just tell you what it was. The iron trap was set incorrectly. Yeah. I had previously known of advice for setting the iron trap magnet as just adjust it for the brightest picture that you can get, and I thought I had got it. But then I read some other advice on the excellent UK vintage radio restoration forums, which was to adjust. See, the whole ring isn't magnetic. There's only one part of it that's magnetic, so which acts as the magnet. Which was to adjust the magnet so that it's in line with pin 3 of the. Oh, cool! You can see on the inside of the tube from here. Look, that's the inside of the screen. Ooh. But anyway, yeah. That and my stupidity, my ignorance, I'll be completely honest here. I've done TV sets, mid-50s TV sets with iron traps before, but never one that's been set incorrectly. The complication I mentioned a moment or two ago is that this tube socket, not this, but this here is really flaky, as you've seen in previous videos. It's loose, it's not exactly really tight, and it's supposed to be permanently bonded to the glass of the tube neck, and it isn't, because there's wires protruding through holes in the glass of the tube neck, which goes to a certain length inside this tube base, and then there are wires that come out of the holes in the glass of the tube neck that then come out of here, or meet the pins on this tube socket. And if this thing works its way loose, that can not only mean that wires start to break, or that wires start to break apart or snap or start to touch each other if it twists around, which this one does, unfortunately. It's that loose. But also you do run the risk of air getting into the tube as well, and I think that's what's starting to happen here, which is bad for something that's supposed to operate in a vacuum. See that milky white ring around there? I don't know for certain if that is the getter, which is or mercury vapor, which acts as a getter to capture any remaining air particles inside the tube. But yeah, the tube is supposed to operate in a vacuum so that electrons can flow freely, and I've seen getters going exactly that colour, exactly that shade of feathery or milky greyish white on valves. Now, I would say that's probably an extreme example, but notice the edges of the white area, not this bit, but the edges of the white area, how it's going that sort of milky white, off-coloured white. Look around the edge, look especially there, the edge of the white patch just above my thumb, just above the letter M there. Yeah, that is not good. I didn't pull this from the set, by the way. I discovered that in my valve stock. But yeah, I am chuffed with that. We are on the home run. I've just asked on the Facebook group, UK Vintage Television Connectors, if there is any way of fixing that, because that is looser than a very, very loose thing, if we're going to quote Blackadder. EHT actually seems to be okay. I think I must have misread the manual, right, when it gave an EHT of 14 kilovolts when we've only got 10. I must have been looking at the voltages quoted for the 17-inch tube, which of course would need a higher EHT, extra high tension, extra high voltage if you like. It would need a higher EHT to drive it, because it's larger. Yeah, because I've looked online at this tube type, MW3624, which is the tetrode version of the MW3644. You can convert a set from one to the other if you do a bit of rewiring here. But Yeah, MW3624 and 44 both only seem to need 10 kilovolts, which is what we're getting. Yeah, okay, so my excuse for this is, well, my excuse for that is that this is just a resurrection. I'm not restoring it, so as soon as I've got this to display a TV picture, I'm stripping it apart again. Yeah, my excuse for this video being so disorganized is quite simply, I've only been doing this 10 years, but even then that's been part-time. So I would often spend months between restorations not doing anything with old TVs. So as soon as I learn something, a lot of it's forgotten. But with this series of videos, regular videos that I'm hoping to do, that should become a thing of the past, right? Because if I'm wanting to do regular YouTube videos on old TV sets, yeah, okay, I don't know how often my schedule is going to be, my upload schedule yet, because I've not actually started uploading. But if I'm intending on doing them regularly, and you guys expect them regularly, then that should force me to get up off my fat arse and do something about them. Do something about this collection of old TVs I've acquired over the years. But yeah, looking good. We are looking good. When I come to scrap the set, I am not going to just chuck this tube away, because good MW3624s and 44s are like hen's teeth. When I say good, I mean ones with a bright picture. Yeah, so that tube base socket, or the tube base, that will need sorting. No ifs or buts about it. It's just too flaky, right, for it to be of any use. Yet that brightness there is too good for this tube to be wasted, so that has to be sorted. No option, no choice. Right, so same date, a few hours later, after I decided to have a rest as I rejoiced in victory at actually bringing some life into this thing. Now then, let's sort out this frame issue, because whenever I'm going to try and do this one-handed, whenever I try to first of all move the set to get access to the controls, when I try to, that's frame hold, I believe. Well, that control doesn't do anything whenever I turn it. That does sweet FA. That seems to be the linearity. Although it's really touchy, it just keeps on turning and turning. Ah, there we are. We've finally got an end point. Yep. So I mean, look at the gap between those scan lines. Even for 405 you could probably, those are so wide apart by the looks of things. In fact, no, when I look at them through my eye, they don't look too bad. Before, it was really spaced up here and then really cramped down here. But as you will probably notice, this lighter band here, that is not actually part of the image that's been fed into the tube. That is where the picture is sort of folded back against itself on the back of the picture. So we've got a frame output issue. Specifically that this here is where the frame output valve loses emission, because as the TV draws out a frame from top to bottom, up here there is lower voltage, and to actually make it draw it down through an inductor, the scan coils, I don't think you can really see them in there, as it's got to make that go through a magnetic field, it has to increase the voltage. So as the frame output valve drives this, the voltage goes up, 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 and then as it reaches the bottom of the screen, it's supposed to suddenly collapse, and then it starts again with the next picture. So it's a sawtooth. It builds up, 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 bang, up, 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 bang. Right, so yeah, and a very similar process, albeit on a much faster frequency, for the line stage, which gives it width, which is the whistling that you can hear. You can probably hear. So yeah, so what's happening here is the frame stage is losing emission before it can reach the bottom of the screen. Could be down to a faulty frame output valve. I'm using the trader sheet for this. Could be down to a faulty frame output valve, or I think more likely it's going to be down to either that capacitor, which is the cathode decoupler, like it's connected to the cathode, or it could be that capacitor which also forms as a decoupler for the multivibrator type of frame oscillator, characterized by the two capacitors in a crisscross pattern. Or it could be that resistor, or it could be both. Right, so just for voltage measurements, I've decided to go back to the Cossor version of the service manual, simply because it just makes things easier when looking up valve references. On the other one, you have to go through several pages, and because you have to look up which pin and then the voltage. On this, it has them both on the same page. On the trader sheet, it has them on separate pages, from what I remember. Yeah, it does actually. Right, it has wiring diagrams of the valves on one page, and then voltage descriptions on another, and I can't be doing with that. Anyway, yeah, so I want to find capacitor 89 and measure on the plus side of that, which it'll have the same voltage. So I'd prefer to do that rather than trying to measure at the tube pins with this fat thing, because if I did that, then that would then risk this being wide enough to touch other pins and short things out, which I do not want to do. Right, we are looking for capacitor 89, which means for the component reference and for an accurate diagram of where it is in there, I'll need to go back to the trader, which will have a different number. So yeah, and we are looking for 10 volts on pin 3, or 10 volts on the top of that capacitor. Right, and in the trader look, it is capacitor 106. Right, so where is 106? Let me just zoom out on this. Where is 106? And this has it. This is upside down compared to that, so 106 right at the bottom. Right, okay. So it is likely this guy here. Got a light just to show it because the camera does not. There we are. Yeah, the camera is not that sensitive when it comes to picking up dirt. Yeah, my camera work is world class, isn't it? Absolutely world class. Talking about the capacitor, so let's have a look at the video connector socket. Yeah, brilliant. And there it is. So, and it looks as though that's going to be quite hard to get access to the plus side of that, even with these crocodile clips. So I may well end up having to measure it on the pins of the valve. Right, let's switch on. So, valve's warming up. Yeah, so we're about 70 watts now, and around about here is where they start conducting. Watch when it rises. There we are, and the voltage is going up now. We are looking for 10 volts. What are we gonna get? About 7. Okay. Don't know, it might rise to 8, which shouldn't be too bad then. I don't think that would point to the valve. It sounds like it may well be the capacitor. Seems like it may well be the capacitor. So yeah, we are currently drawing 117, 118 watts. I think I just saw that bounce around. Yep, there we are. So, fairly normal, right, for a 50s black and white TV. And we have nothing on the screen. Oh well, we probably wouldn't, would we? I've pulled out that video feed lead. Yeah, the sound thing is really flaky. Really, really flaky. Okay, right, so I think we need to test before I certify that it's the capacitor, I think we need to do some more tests. I want to do anode next, and then I will do the grids. Right, so anode. Right, for both halves of the valve, because it's triode and a pentode in one. So we want pin 1 and pin 6. Pin 1 is 75, pin 6, which is the anode for the pentode, is 170. Right. So I have to get my fingers quite close to some hairy voltages to unclip that lead. So let me just switch it off for a moment. Right. So we are looking for pin 1 first, 75. Pin 1. Right, now which one is the frame valve? It is, come on, which one is the frame valve? It's going to be either that one or that one. Valve 10, valve 11. Frame output is valve 11, which is that one. That one's the oscillator. I don't think we're looking for that one at the moment because, well, we've got the vertical hold varies when I try and adjust it, so that's running, as is this half of that. So we are looking around here. This is the output, and anode is connected directly into the frame output transformer, which is that swirly coil there. So yeah, pin 6, pin 1, 75, and it is, where are you? It is that one there, I think, because then we've got another one down there. They've updated the design on here as well, on the top, because the original one, the Cossor, had this as the oscillator and the frame output up here, and don't know if you can see, but there's a hole behind there that's about wide enough for a B9A socket, which is what most of the valves in this set use. That hole between this resistor and this capacitor, that hole between them, look, that one there is definitely wider than that type of hole. So yeah, what they've done is they've shifted these down, or rather they've just moved the frame output valve around. Frame output used to be there with the oscillator there, that one, Now that one is the oscillator, and then the one down here which you're probably going to struggle to see, that one there is the output. So of course it would just happen to be in the most inaccessible part of it, but it makes sense though, because it's connected directly to that capacitor and resistor. So we are looking for pins 1 and 6, and it was, I think, 70 volts on pin 1 we were looking for. My memory for numbers is awful today. Yeah, 75 volts. Right, in amongst that mess, I have got to find pin 1, because I've got to look for where the gap is in the pins. I see. Yep, I have to move a couple of wires out the way to get to that. So is it clear hipped on? No, it is not. I'm really going to have to just use these. There we are. I was beginning to fear that I would have to start using the probe without the crocodile clip. I don't like it, because I kind of find it a bit hard to hold it still. So valves are warming up again. Now they're dropping because they are, because they're warming up, so they're starting to consume, or rather they're starting to get hotter and hotter. That's what I meant. Usually around this point, around about now, starting to, so it's starting to conduct. Volts, really? That seemed as though that were going to climb higher. 12 volts? Oh, the meter wasn't on properly. Just push it on just a bit more. 68, that's close enough to 70. Right, so 9, 8, move the wire out the way, 7, 6, okay, that's in the most inaccessible part, even with all the wires moved out the way. We are probably going to struggle to get this on. 9876. I'm going to have to just use my test probe without the crocodile clip. Right. Switch on again. The reason why it came on a bit faster that time was because I'd only switched it off a couple of minutes ago. The valves were already warm. Right, so let me just touch that on there. Probably not making very good contact. This is why I don't like using this. 147, that's a bit of a come down from 175. We've got issues around here. Switch that off. We have issues in this circuit, I think. Although of course that feeds into the boost. Now I'm still not convinced that the boost is... Yeah, I'm not convinced that the boost is all that. Right. Speaking of which, that's the next thing that we measure on the screen. Yeah, screen grid. Okay. Screen grid is grid 2, 180. Of course, 180 is the HT rail. Of course, I should have known without even looking that that would be 180. And then the anode, as we already know, should be 170, but it ain't. Right, so 180. Are we getting 180 to pin 2? Let's find out. Right, can I use my crocodile clip on that one? Probably, because it's next to pin 1. So just put that in, clip it on. Let's get it on. Come on, move out of the way, you stupid wire. Shit. It's the cheap test lead that's beginning to fall apart. Pin 2. Valve starting to conduct now. We should have 180 on here, so let's just give it time to build and build and build. Seven volts. Oh, we're getting an attack of the volts, and it's connected directly to it, so it's not a resistor. See, look, it's connected directly to the HT rail, and we know that the HT rail's okay. That's not at 7 volts, otherwise we wouldn't get anything. So is the valve internally shorted, or is it that clip lead? I'm gonna have to do it without the clip lead on again, aren't I? So switch that off because I do not fancy shocking myself. Fortunately I can hold it a bit more securely on there because there's a resistor pin right to it. Which doesn't sound right. Pin 8. See? Pin 8, not pin 2. These are the kinds of schoolboy errors I am probably becoming famous for. But I get there in the end. Slowly, I get there in the end. Right, pin 8. Now let's see what it is. Nothing. That is not right either. Up there, what is it? Yeah, the HT is still kind of low. Or maybe it's just this meter that's loading it down a bit. Oh. This is why I do not like using bare ends of probes. 157 we'll call that. That's low. That is low. And that's coming right from the HT rail. We're getting back into this discussion, aren't we? HT rail still being low. Or possibly low if it's not the meter, digital meter loading it down. Right, but it should still be okay though. So we know that the HT is low, or appears low. The rest of the set seems absolutely fine with it, or seems to be fine with it. Let me just start holding you guys properly. There we are. The rest of the set seems to be okay with it to some extent. We're getting line whistle. We were getting plenty of EHT plenty of raster, until I pulled that out, which I had to do because it's not long enough to meet the IF chassis. So where do we go from here? Let me think about this for just a minute. As the rest of the set seems to be okay on 150, 160, whatever it was, it's only 23 volts lower than what it should be. The rest of the set seems to be okay with it. The frame oscillator seems to be okay with it. There seems to be plenty of height. So yeah, the output is okay with that. Right, so yep, we've narrowed it down. We need to look down. We definitely need to look down here, or possibly at a faulty valve itself. That capacitor is hooked up. And I think it said it's rated for 25 volts, and it is going leaky. At 25 volts there is no eye opening. When I put this on 15 volts, there's an eye opening, so that thing is charging. there, but when we get somewhat higher, there's no opening on the magic eye. I'm going to say that thing is suspect, but also that resistor there, the top one, needs testing, as that is the one that was directly in parallel with it. Yeah, 560 ohms. I don't think that is. I'm 50-50 split on whether I think that that's gone high. Nearly 600. And it's what, a tolerance band silver 10%, so so 10% of 560 is 56. 560 plus 56 would be 616, so yeah, that is within spec. That's still within tolerance. After replacing all that, still the same, so might well be the valve then. Right, so they are both that valve and that valve. I have swapped them over because they're both the same type, both an ECL 80. So let's see if we get the same stuff on the screen. Let me just turn the lamp off. Do we get the set? Ooh, it gets worse. Okay. That to me tells me that one of the valves is failing. One of those valves is failing. What's the height like? Or rather, what's the height control like, I should say. Seems like it's the remember we had loads more height than that, didn't we? Before I swapped it over. So yeah, that valve is tired. Right, a used working one installed, and it's focusing on the wire when we don't want that. Right, so used working one installed. Well, in theory it's working. Let's see what we get now. Is it going to be the same? Probably. So what are we going to get? Valve should start conducting around about now. There we are. I've got a funny feeling it's going to be the same. Okay, well, it's not the same. Still got fold over though. Right. I have swapped another ECL 80 over. I've actually swapped it over with the one that I've just taken out. Something is not ringing true about one of these valves. Okay, Do we have raster up there? Yes, we do. So we've got. So my diagnosis about which valve it was wrong. That one's the tired one. Extended a bit more to the bottom of the screen now, I think. Okay. So yeah, I've managed to get it better by adjusting these controls under here. Frame hold is top, frame linearity middle, and frame height bottom. Frame hold is sometimes known as a vertical hold. I've almost managed to adjust out that line. I'm beginning to think then that there's something wrong either with these controls themselves. Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? They are somewhere under here. There they are. With those controls themselves, or with some of the components that feed into them. I think some resistors are going high here. I've been caught out by something similar to this before, where it looked as though it was an output issue with either the valve or the cathode. Well, we know that the valve was faulty. That was partly to blame for this, but I can't get that full screen. As you'll notice, there's top and bottom gaps. I can't get that full screen without that white band appearing at the bottom again. And I've come across something similar to this before, where it looked as though it was cramping or fold over at the bottom. Well, I mean it is, but it looked as though it was fold over caused by either the valve or something in the cathode circuit, when in fact it can sometimes be caused by linearity issues. This is a feedback loop. It's frame pulses, I think, that are the reference point. It's a long time since I've done this. Frame pulses, which are shaped by this and then fed back into the valve. There's a reference point. See how it forms a loop? Valve 9B, that junction, through resistor 122, that junction, back round here, back round to frame linearity, which is a variable capacitor, which is why it's got that, I don't know, hammer through it, hammer and sickle, hammer through it, and then it gets through. So you have from there, through resistor 122, through that, through resistor 121, and then back into the valve, and it forms a loop, feedback loop. Frame linearity variable capacitor is not beyond doubt, but I think that that's fairly unlikely. I think it's going to be resistor 121 or 122, or even both. Could also, I suppose, be something to do with the shaping of the frame pulse. So not necessarily the voltage, but the shaping. I've got that, but I've never, in all 10 or 11 years of having that, I've never even needed to use it, so I've never bothered to learn how to use it. really should do someday. Anyway, resistor 120 and 119 and also capacitor 109 could cause that. Yeah, you're not hearing things. The line hold on this is really... line oscillator, sorry, on this is really flaky. In fact, one resistor that I think I should check first though, before checking all these, is that one. Yeah, because that feeds the height. We don't have enough height. That then feeds onto here, which gives us sync pulses, which can, if those are misshaped, can also cause linearity to be all screwed up. Okay, this thing is batshit. Now we have absolutely nothing out of the speaker. I assure you I have not touched the volume at all. Remember, it was buzzing earlier. That thing is dark. The screen is a bit darker, but it's reaching the edges of the screen. And now we have HT going up to HT and Boost HT are both very, very close to spec. Boost HT is actually 390 volts. And I didn't understand it until I spotted that. See that wax blob there? I mean, that's on the lead of one of the capacitors I replaced. That's new. Seeing these blobs down here, and those, and those, and that. All of those are from that capacitor up there. It's now melting. Like the wicked old Witch of the West, it's melting. Or was it Wicked Old Witch of the East? One that went, I'm melting, melting, in Wizard of Oz. Whichever. It's that one. Oh yeah, that's crapping itself. That is me in a boxing ring with Mike Tyson type of crapping itself. And according to the trader, that is capacitor 75. Remember, this is upside down from that. So what does capacitor 75 do apart from go short circuit? Zoom that and that out. Capacitor 75. It's that one, but I thought I replaced that one. Right, it's the next day, 7th of May. Right, I have replaced that leaking capacitor and bodged a repair on the aerial socket. Would anyone like to make sense of this? I can just barely lock it. Okay. Ugh. I'm not sure what to make of that, because that thing just gives us test card C when there's no input, and that, I can tell you now, is not test card C. Not even close. You probably wouldn't believe this, but we are starting to get there. Very, very faintly you can see test card C in amongst all that. That is a horrible mess though. Right, and after adjusting for that, I would say that we are almost there. Yeah. So I've adjusted the attenuator on that. The contrast, which is that one, and the interference limiter, which is that control there. And we are getting there. I've tried to adjust the vertical lock. It adjusts, but it doesn't quite lock in, so. And we have frame lock, just about. Just about. It's very twitchy, but we are there, virtually. It's still very weak. It looks better in the camera than it does on the screen, trust me, but we're there. Virtually, we just now need to get the sound working. We're there. We're there. I can't believe it. After all that, we are there. Yeah, and remember those resistors that I said I should check? Only one of them was out of spec. Okay, I've had a week off from this thing. Eurovision is currently playing, though not on this TV. We have decent television on this. I am trying to diagnose a sound issue. Voltages on the sound output valve are all okay. They're all absolutely bang on spec. There is absolutely no sound at all. I've bridged that speaker into there because I just can't be bothered to unsolder that, and we still have absolutely nout. Nothing. Zilch. Zilch. No scratches. No crackles. Try and change the channel. See? That speaker is deaf, dumb and blind. So is the audio output transformer. Is I wouldn't have thought so. I wouldn't have thought that the audio output transformer would be open, at least not the primary, because we're still getting 165 volts at the anode of the sound output valve. But even if, because these are the other sound valves, or some of them are, even if any of those sound stages wasn't working, we'd still get crackles or something there. Right, I've diagnosed it. That's open. Completely open circuit. The inside that volume control, which forms part, that is the on and off control. and one of these is the brightness. I think it's the front one that's the brightness. The middle one is the volume. If I'm looking at these, if I look at these pins down here, down there, see those? Just there. There's one there, and there's another one that you can't see that's tucked behind there. That middle one, I think, is the volume control. And I have just measured, in a very difficult manner, I've just connected that to that point there, which feeds into the tapping on the potentiometer, and then the other one to ground, and we're totally open circuit. So the connection between the point with the arrow and the zigzag line, in other words the wiper, which is quite literally a wiper that goes along a carbon track, that wiper must have come disconnected from the track, so there's no control voltage getting to the sound output. So there's no sound at all going into the sound output, because look, if you look at the rest of this, there's no other feed into it. Of course there's power, HT, and then there's output to the speaker, but there's no input from the other stages apart from that. So I still don't quite understand how we're not getting any sort of crackling from the speaker whenever I move the valve around or scratch any of the pins with my screwdriver, but that is going to be a complete pain in the arse to replace, and I mean that, a total pain in the arse. So what I think I will do is struggle with knowing which way is zoom in and zoom out on my camera, but no, what I think I will do is I'm just going to cut that out of circuit, not the power switch of course or the brightness, but the volume. Completely cut that out of circuit and then bridge connecting a potentiometer to, yeah, that potentiometer is broken, so I'll connect in one of my own just to prove that that there is some sound, just to resurrect that. In fact, I haven't looked back at any of the footage that I've recorded so far. It's still in here and also upstairs on my computer, on my main computer. But I think I have a memory of there being, of this potentiometer, as you turned it, the sound, there was sometimes some dead spots in the sound where it just went totally quiet, so I'm wondering if that was breaking down anyway and then just waking it up, giving it power, and then twiddling that back and forth has finally killed it. And that is deader than, yeah, I've killed it. I think that's deader than Boris Johnson's political ambitions. Okay, so life got in the way, and here I am a few days later. I noticed I must have been tired or something. I know the last time I did this, I noticed that was on the wrong measurement. So because it mentions 0.5 meg, it says in one of the manuals 0.5 m. Right, so of course in my tiredness I had misinterpreted that as 0.5k. Then just the other day, just a random thought entered and thought, hang on, 0.5k is a bit low for a volume pot, isn't it? But it's still really dodgy. Whenever I twist it even slightly, let go, and it goes up. I twist it again very slightly and it goes down to that. I twist it again very slightly in the same direction and it goes back up. So this pot, let me just see if I can get it making contact there. That pot, that middle one there, is very, very sick. And I don't see any holes where I can properly spray some Servicol, unless maybe that down there, maybe. Just shine a light on that. This is the stuff I'm talking about. So let's see if I can spray that in there. I'm probably going to have to put this camera down while I try and bend the nozzle to go in there. Hang on. It turns out that there is no hole there because that is resting against something. When I try to get it in what I thought was a hole, now it's resting against something, so there's no hole there. That will need to be bridged. Turns out I wasn't imagining things. Look, 0.5 ohms. But you need to watch out. Anyone who's new to doing electronic service, please don't, well, first of all, don't take these videos from me as an educational video. It is just purely for entertainment. 0.5 ohms. Watch out for something like this. I've discovered that there is a printing mistake. That needs to say 0.500k ohms. 0.500k, because when we look at the, hang on, where's it gone? When we look at the trader sheet, resistor 100 is 500k. 0.500k ohms, sorry, it should say 500k or 0.5 meg. Right, but yeah, even the dogs agree with me. Right, resistor 100, 500k. And when we look, just to prove that that is the volume, there we are, resistor 100, volume. So yeah, I do not take the blame for getting that wrong the other day. That was on the wrong measurement, so of course 500k would measure as open circuit when switched to the 2k thing, but Yeah, I do not take the blame for that because the manufacturers there, they missed out an M.5M, which is half a meg, which is 500k. So, yeah. I have got one that is near enough 470k. The picture keeps going out on that unless I change the channel and change it back again. Something wrong in the tuner, and I do not, repeat, do not like tuner faults. Hang on. That sounds about right. There. There we are. I have bridged that 470k pot in there. I've made sure that there are no shorts there. Okay, that resistor that I had put in earlier, that has, yeah, that is the cathode bypass resistor to the audio output. The cathode currently measures 56 volts, it's meant to measure 12. That will be the cause, that's got to be it. That is totally open. Okay, the sound is junk, but we have some. We have some. That is just the camera blanking. Camera is not taking a picture at the same time as the TV is not displaying one, so you'll get those bars sometimes. Yeah, that thing, we have got some sound at last. I'll just try adjusting, fine-tuning. That's the best I can get. Yeah. There's still something wrong either here or in here. In the tuner, right, or in the IF strip. Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. I don't think I'm going to bother anymore with the sound. We've got something out of it. Let me just check if it does that same buzzing thing on other channels. Yeah, kind of. That is probably something to do with the AG automatic gain control or signal strength, but we're nearly there as far as the electronics go. This thing seems to be picking up some interference from my computer. Watch this. Hear that? How weird is that? Must be some... It must be picking... That must be picking up some kind of... I bet this VGA cable I've got feeding into the back of this monitor's not very well screened. I bet that's what it is. Well, either that's not very well screened, or there's something on here that's not very well screened. Of course, though, that's a computer about 20 years old. This is a TV about 70 years old, so there's a 50-year difference in technology between them. I really don't think, when they were designing this, that they thought everyone would have their own personal computer. And I don't think when they were designing this that anyone would be crazy enough to still want to use a 70-year-old television, or by then 50-year-old television. Yeah. It's not the speaker, by the way. I've got it back on the original speaker. You can see a bit of the screen through there. Look, right. There's this painting effect here that is quite literally painted on. That's the aqueduct coating.
To pull an investment, not in the theme park that's very close to me here in Celebration, but in Orlando. They were going to bring white-collar jobs, some tech-related jobs, 2,000 of them to this area. And for the people I was talking to around here, they were looking forward to that because they wanted to have, Florida wanted to have two jobs that weren't directly related to the hospitality and tourism industry. They wanted to expand a little bit into the tech and white-collar corporate.
Yes, the volume control is around there. I've not decided not to fix the linearity issue. I've had enough of this thing. It's time to give someone else a week to commit to scrapping it. And I mean a week from today. I don't mean a week from the day that you're seeing this video. Yeah, as you can see, there are loads of faults. The sound is buzzy. The knobs, the knobs are not the originals. These are just what came with the TV. There would have been some other knobs that came with it. Linearity is folded over at the bottom, so you can't read BBC News ticker tape. That is the maximum height I can get. So we've definitely got frame issues. You can also see it's juddering. The tuner, the picture for the tuner keeps coming and going. That's probably just dirty contact. I'm not even going to bother spraying those. I am handing this on to someone else who's willing to prepare, who's prepared, willing, whatever, who's willing to spend the time on this, because I'm quite surprised that I've even managed to get this far with it, given the state that it's in. Yeah, and if no one claims it, I'll just strip it down for spare parts and then chuck the rest in the bin. It's yeah.
Anthony, thank you so much for really interesting stuff. Thanks. Anthony works around the world and across the UK.
Right.
When did you realise that you were struggling?
Well, that's the funny thing. That's what I sort of chronicle in my book. I mean, my whole life, I've certainly been a high-stress person. And, I had a somewhat troubling childhood. I was adopted. There were problems with my adopted family and all that. But the idea that this was any sort of mental issue that I needed to deal with just never occurred to me. And then it became really debilitating. Well, first in 2005, for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, and then again in 2013. In 2013, I couldn't find my way out. So I sought help in 2005 just briefly, but then in 2013 is when I really started. I had such uncontrollable anxiety, dominated my life. And a year later, the chronic pain came on. So that's when I really started I had to find help. It was just, it's hard to describe if you haven't ever experienced anxiety, but the difference between stress and uncontrollable anxiety is profound. And I had that, and I realized I needed help.
And were people around you aware of what you were going through, or were you quite good at hiding it, masking it?
Well, I mean, as I actually say in the book, I probably thought I was better at masking it than I actually was, but certainly early on I did a pretty good job of hiding it. Because look, I mean, there was a huge stigma around mental health. I mean, we're getting better at that in the last few years, but this was 10 years ago. And I honestly thought that if people knew I was having this anxiety struggle, I'd probably lose my job. So I tried to keep it from others for a long time. And eventually that became very...
In case anyone doesn't know, it's Mental Health Awareness Week.
Was the people who know about this, the better. And that's one of the things I'm trying to change.
Notice how the picture's gradually getting darker? That's what this thing does.
Well, I went through a whole lot of help. In fact, I
Needs
probably 100 health
that.
providers of one kind or another.
Changing the channel and changing it back to bring it back. Something up in the tuner.
And going to physical therapists. I have 2 artificial hips now. I went through 3 hip surgeries. But I also went through about a dozen psychologists / psychiatrists before I finally found I found a psychologist in late 2015 who had the right approach. I didn't believe him at first. It took me a couple of years to sort of understand what he was saying and apply it.
You can probably hear the boiler.
Muscle activation therapist in 2018. Ultimately, they both taught me how my mind works and how my body works, and I learned that lesson and was able to fix it. But overall, it took about 6 years, and even after I found the people who could help me, it took a couple of years after that.
Your book obviously will provide advice, help, hopefully to people. There may be people watching now who might be going through something similar. What would be the sort of the key lesson that you would take from your life experience?
Well, 2 big things, and then there's a lot, but at the top, help can be found. Because I think in both chronic pain and in mental illness, there's perception. Certainly I had the perception that there's just certain things you have to live with and there's no way to fix it. One of my biases against psychiatry, I say this in the book, that I always remember this article from The Onion, which is a satirical magazine in the U.S. And the headline was, "Psychiatrist Actually Cures Someone." The notion was that, there's just no fixing this. There is help. You can find a basic approach to mental health. You can change the way you think. You can change the way your emotions affect you with proper help. So number one, there's help. It can be found, and be patient in pursuing it. Second big thing is you got to be honest. You really have to be honest about who you are, what your concerns are. It's not effective to bury your emotions and what you feel. You have to be honest with somebody. You have to be honest with yourself as a starting point. If you have someone you can talk to, that helps with that. Last point, in the U.S., we are way over-reliant on drugs. I would urge people to be very cautious about the medications they choose to take. I took a variety of different medications thinking that would be the answer. It never was, and in many ways it delayed my recovery and made my problems worse. So do not rely as much on pharmaceuticals. And those are sort of the 3 top-level things that I would like to get out there. And there's a lot else, but for these purposes, that's where I would start.
Congressman Adam Smith, thank you so much for talking to us. Your book, Lost and Broken, I'm sure people will find it very interesting and hopefully very helpful. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the chance. Really appreciate it.
Now, Syria's President Bashar al-Assad has arrived in the Saudi city of Jeddah, where he'll attend Friday's summit of the Arab League, ending Damascus's 12-year exclusion from the bloc. Now, it was suspended 12 years ago because of a crackdown on protesters that led to the civil war.
Yeah, and then give him a month, he'll do something else, and then he'll be suspended again.
Devastated parts of northern Syria. Many Syrians who fled their country oppose Mr. Assad's rehabilitation as does the US.
What is it with nutters becoming presidents in that part of the world?
Is now in Jeddah, where the summit will take place tomorrow. So thank you for
Complete
joining.
lunatics.
Was this a surprise?
No, it's not a surprise actually. If you look at what's happened since February, since the earthquake, there has been countries in this region like Saudi Arabia have expedited the process to bring Syria back into the fold, Arab fold. Now these efforts were on for the last 3 or 4 years. Countries like the UAE, Oman were making diplomatic efforts to build a consensus. But it's really when Saudi Arabia got involved that we saw a big push. And a few weeks ago, during one of the meetings of the Arab countries, they put it to vote, and out of the 22 members, 13 voted in favor of admitting Syria back. And now Mr. Bashar al-Assad will be attending his first summit in 12 years. He will be addressing it tomorrow. And this is definitely a pivotal moment for him. And life has actually come full circle for him, because a lot of members in the league were supporting his enemies. They funded them, they were giving them support, countries like Saudi Arabia, but now they've come around and say they feel that the only way to engage with Syria is to work with Mr. Assad, and that's why it's important to bring him back into the fold.
Now, the Arab League potentially might be criticised. The US might offer some criticism. How do you think that will go down in Jeddah?
I don't think the Arab countries are too concerned about what the Western countries like the US think. I think Saudi Arabia, the UAE have played a big role in really building that consensus. It's important to keep in mind that not all countries are in favor of this idea. Qatar and Kuwait were against it, they opposed it, but eventually Saudi Arabia was able to convince, since it's the leader of the pack, that it was important to engage with Syria, and that is why we see that because Saudi Arabia is the host of the leagues of the summit this year, it extended an invite to Mr. Assad, and which is why he has come down. But there is a sense from some Arab countries that even though the United States has publicly said that it would not legitimize or give any approval to this regime, it wants to basically make sure that
we are going to
some sort of engagement.
We're going to have to leave it there. I'm so sorry.
Hello there, full UK forecast in a moment, but first of all we're going to start off with what's going on in Italy, where we've seen some extreme rain over recent days thanks to
I was hoping that there was going to be breaking news just then.
On the major roads heading into Bologna, the capital.
Who had died? Rolf
Romano
Harris?
region, which has been
Stuart Hall?
really badly hit. But I fear there's further extreme rainfall on the way.
Someone else
this
more
time
deserving.
in the northwest of Italy, where over the next few days we could see around 200 or 300 millimetres of rain,
That's your lot.
particularly centred around the Piedmont region. It's likely to lead to further severe flooding and further landslides as well. Now, Italy's seen more than its